We learned at church that being gay is a sin.
Yes. The Bible says that engaging in homosexual behavior is a sin.
Where in the Bible does it say that God doesn't like gays?
To clarify, the Bible doesn't say that God doesn't like gays, or that being gay is a sin. Only that engaging in homosexual behavior is a sin. Leviticus 18 verse 22 says, "Do not have sexual relations with a man as one does with a woman, that is detestable."
So Leviticus tells us what is a sin, and what we shouldn't do so that we do not go to hell?
Yes. We use Leviticus as proof that homosexual behavior is a sin.
Do we follow everything in Leviticus as proof of what God says?
Not everything. Some of the rules in Leviticus are too hard, so we simply ignore them for our own convenience. Most people find it very easy to not be gay, so that rule is followed very strictly and is not considered antiquated.
What are other rules in Leviticus that are too hard to follow?
Leviticus 20 verse 13 says, "If a man has sexual relations with a man as one does with a woman, both of them have done what is detestable. They are to be put to death, their blood will be on their own heads."
But we do not put to death those that engage in homosexual behavior even though God says it is their own fault? Why not?
Because man's law says that we will go to jail if we kill people. So we ignore God's law in this case because most people fundamentally disagree and think that the verse is antiquated.
But the Bible saying that you shouldn't engage in homosexual behavior is not antiquated? Only the punishment? Is there other punishment in Leviticus that is antiquated?
Yes, for example, Leviticus 20 verse 9 says that anyone who curses their father or mother is to be put to death. Verse 10 says that if a man commits adultery with another man's wife, both are to be put to death. Verse 27 says a man or woman who is a fortune teller among you must be put to death.
We no longer put people to death as the Bible says, but we still follow the rule that says engaging in homosexual behavior is a sin.
Yes. Only the punishment is antiquated. We do not want to kill people because we do not want to go to jail. But the rule that says engaging in homosexual behavior, even though it is from the same book in the Bible, is not antiquated.
We no longer follow the rules of punishment in Leviticus, but we follow all of the other rules of behavior?
No. As I said before, many of the rules of behavior are too hard to follow, so we ignore them. For example, Leviticus 19 verse 19 says, "Do not wear clothing woven of two kinds of material."
But we do this?
Yes. We frequently mix cotton and linen fabrics when we wear clothes. We ignore this part of the Bible because it is inconvenient and it is more important to look nice.
What else in Leviticus do we ignore?
Leviticus 19 verse 13 says we should not hold back wages of workers overnight. But we ignore this rule because it would be really inconvenient to pay employees every day. Verse 27 says, "Do not cut the hair at the sides of your head or clip off the edges of your beard." But we ignore this rule because we like to look nice more than we like to follow this rule in the Bible.
These rules would be very hard to follow.
Leviticus also has rules about what we are to eat. Leviticus 19 verse 26 says, "Do not eat any meat with the blood still in it." But we ignore this because yuppies like their sushi, and Americans love their steak rare. Leviticus chapter 11 says that because the pig does not chew the cud, it is unclean for you, and that you must not eat their meat. But we ignore this rule because we love ham, pork chops and bacon.
I do not want to give up my bacon.
Leviticus chapter 11 verse 9 through 12 says, "All creatures in the seas or streams that do not have fins and scales you are to regard as unclean, and you must not eat their meat."
Only animals in the water with fins and scales?
Right. But we ignore this rule because that would exclude shrimp, oysters, and delicious lobster. We would be very sad if we couldn't eat surf and turf. We love rare steak and lobster, so we ignore this rule.
So what is followed in Leviticus is dictated by what is convenient for the majority. If it is a rule that only inconveniences a minority of the population, it is followed very strictly. But if it is something that seems unreasonable, something we enjoy, or inconvenient for the majority, it is ignored as antiquated. Is it possible that engaging in homosexual behavior is another antiquated rule that God created as a way to keep the Israelites from getting food poisoning, grow their population, and help them prosper in ancient Bible times?
Perhaps. But I think straight Christians prefer to think of not being gay as easy credit with God. Just before verse 22 on homosexual behavior, in verse 21, it says that you should not sacrifice your child to Moloch. This rule is still followed very strictly today. Most Christians do not sacrifice their child to Moloch. There are plenty of rules like this in Leviticus that we can pretend are still relevant, and easy rules to adhere to that will get you credit for following the Bible.
It sounds like the best strategy is picking and choosing whatever rules are convenient to follow. But I like the rule that children are not to be sacrificed to Moloch. I do not think that is antiquated and will strictly follow this rule.
Good job. It is easy to follow the Bible if we pick and choose the rules that we would follow anyway. I finally got my paycheck yesterday. What do you say we go after church to get our hair cut and then grab a BLT and shrimp cocktails?